Welcome to A News, everyone. I'm Anita Sharma. Here's what's making news right now. French President Emmanuel Macron is booed by crowds during his visit to Cyclone Heit Mayot. Ukraine reports Russian missile attacks on Kyiv causing casualties and damage. Amazon workers go on strike in that crucial final days of the holiday season. The president of France faces frustration and mounting criticism during his visit to Mayotte. Local residents are grappling with the devastating aftermath of Cyclone Heit, demanding more aid and attention from Emmanuel Macron's government.
The situation in Mayotte remains dire following Cyclone Heit. President Macron arrived in Mayotte on Thursday and was met with an angry reception in the city of Pimenti. Residents shouted and booed, accusing the government of failing to respond promptly to the crisis. It's been more than 5 days since the cyclone struck. According to official reports, 31 people have lost their lives in Mayotte, France's poorest overseas territory. However, some local leaders feared the death toll could be in the thousands. Thousands of people remain trapped on the rubble, their homes completely destroyed. Heavy rains have hampered rescue operations, making many areas inaccessible. In Mayotte's capital, Vanuatu, some neighborhoods have been reduced to ruins. Aid distribution has been slow, leaving many in desperate need. Additionally, the government announced plans to increase the supply of food and water by air and sea. However, opposition politicians have accused the government of neglecting Mayotte, while local residents claim they have received no assistance since the cyclone hit. Earlier, a report from the French political group La France Insoumise has raised serious questions about President Emmanuel Macron's handling with the indigenous people of French overseas territories. The report specifically highlights alleged marginalization of the Kanak people of New Caledonia, accusations of neocolonialism and violent unrest following controversial government actions. LFI highlights blockades and violent clashes involving independence activists, militias and police in New Caledonia. It claims that 13 people died during the unrest, including at least 8 Kanak individuals allegedly killed by militias.
Residents in Vanuatu have resorted to living in tents after a deadly earthquake damaged their homes. Access to the country's capital, Port Vila, is restricted as search and rescue teams look for survivors in the rubble. Disruptions to power and communication hinder rescue efforts, while UNICEF says water contamination is a huge concern.
The aftermath of a disaster. This is what some residents in Vanuatu's capital, Port Vila, are calling home after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake has damaged their houses. Fearing unsafety, they've turned to sleeping in tents.
Because some of our houses is not safe anymore. Some of them houses where the wall fell off, the iron roof fell off. So that's why we all came here. We stay here for this time being until everything is finished, and then we can go back to our places.
International aid and emergency teams are responding to the catastrophic events, with Australia pledging its support. About 150 Australian tourists have been returned home from Vanuatu, with some reporting minor injuries.
We sat up on a hill for like 4 hours because they said normally a tsunami would come. But yeah, we are lucky. We all got out with a couple bruises, but people passed away. Like they said, it's the worst one in 102 years.
At least 16 people have been killed by the earthquake, including 1 French and 2 Chinese nationals. Officials say they expect the death toll to rise as rescue efforts continue.
Officials in Ukraine report that Russian missile attacks on Kyiv during Friday's rush hour caused casualties and damage. Russia says its strikes on Ukrainian targets were in retaliation for alleged attacks on Rostov. Russian forces launched 8 missiles, including hypersonic Kinjal and Iskander missiles, according to Sergei Popko, the head of Kyiv's military administration. Ukrainian air defenses attempted to intercept the strike. Kyiv police reported at least 11 injuries. Russia's defense ministry confirmed the strikes were a response to alleged Ukrainian attacks on Rostov using U.S. and British missiles, including ATACMS and Storm Shadow systems. The European Union will deliver an additional 30 billion euros of financial support to Ukraine next year. European Council President Antonio Costa made the announcement after a meeting with EU leaders in Brussels. Costa pointed out that the EU already provided about 130 billion euros in financial aid to Ukraine since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, stated that Ukraine could begin EU accession talks early next year, with more negotiations to follow.
We will implement the 15 sanctions package against Russia we approve this week. This package closes loopholes and limits circumvention, and especially targets the so-called shadow fleet. Second, we have already delivered about 130 billion euros of financial support, and we will deliver an additional 30 billion euro in 2025.
And in parallel, we continue to accompany Ukraine on its path of accession to our Union. If Ukraine keeps up the good work, we should be ready to open the first cluster of accession negotiations early next year. Some others could follow during that.
Still in Brussels, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, urges Europe and the United States to adopt a united and resolute stance amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky highlighted the pressing need for coordinated efforts to ensure security and stability in the region.
At a press conference in Brussels, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, reiterated Ukraine's position against accepting a frozen conflict and stressed the importance of security guarantees for the country.
We must understand that we cannot live with a frozen conflict. When it comes to a ceasefire, in any conflict, in any war, people know what will happen after, how it will all end. We need to know what tomorrow is in order to make a ceasefire today.
The Ukrainian leader also highlighted ongoing discussions about potential foreign peacekeeping efforts, stressing the need for US involvement in these talks. Commenting on the incoming US administration, Zelensky expressed optimism.
Welcome, Donald. What can I say? That's... for us, it's very important that I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important. I want to discuss with him more details about this war. I think it's very important because he was not in this war, because he was not the president. It's understandable. And I want to share with him more details.
Responding to Russian President Vladimir Putin's suggestion to revisit a 2022 Istanbul agreement, Zelensky dismissed the claims, clarifying that Ukraine never accepted any Russian ultimatums during those talks.
Ukraine did not agree to the Russian ultimatum. They tried to take the next steps to soften their position somewhat regarding this ultimatum. And these were meetings, you remember. They were both held in Belarus and in Turkey. And they called all these meetings the Istanbul Agreements. Ukraine did not sign anything. There were no agreements. There was a response to a Russian ultimatum.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, attended Brussels, where he met European leaders and NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte to discuss strengthening Kyiv's war effort and securing long-term security guarantees.
Thank you for being here, for taking the time.
To Zagreb, Croatia, where a child was killed and several others were left injured after a knife attack at an elementary school. The Ministry of Health confirmed the attacker stabbed 5 people, wounding 4 and killing 1. According to local media, the attacker is a former student of the school and was detained by police. Prime Minister Andrej Plenković says they are horrified by the tragedy. Authorities are now investigating the incident. Thick smog grips Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, creating a hazardous environment for residents. The city is currently facing one of Europe's worst pollution crises, with many struggling to breathe.
According to IQ Air, which tracks global pollution levels, Sarajevo has ranked as Europe's most polluted city, surpassing even New Delhi. The city's air quality has reached hazardous levels, causing serious health concerns for residents. Local residents reported difficulty breathing, with many expressing concern for vulnerable family members.
After getting out of this kind of air, it is impossible to avoid feeling a tightness in your nose, throat and lungs, and you do not have to be an expert to recognize its negative impact on health.
Air quality expert Miris Bahek stressed the long-term improvements depend on reducing fossil fuel use and traffic congestion.
The citizens of Sarajevo breathe this polluted air. The issue in Sarajevo can only be resolved by phasing out fossil fuel and alleviating traffic congestion, as the existing road infrastructure is inadequate to support the volume of vehicles circulating in the city.
Despite previous promises to ban all the cars and suspend outdoor activities during poor air quality, the local government has yet to implement these measures. Public health concerns are growing as Sarajevo struggles to cope with the pollution crisis.
Syria's de facto leader Ahmed al-Shara has called on Western countries to lift sanctions following the fall of Bashar al-Assad as the country enters a transition period. Al-Shara, the leader of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group that ousted Assad, is the de facto leader of Syria's administration. He sees the drafting of a new constitution as crucial for the future. He stated that sanctions no longer make sense and urged their removal. Al-Shara acknowledged the challenges posed by HTS being labeled a terrorist organization by the West, but he also says he's looking ahead.
We must deal with the Syrian issue in line with current events. These current events require the lifting of all sanctions, because these sanctions were placed on Syria due to the regime that was ruling Syria and had committed all these crimes. These sanctions must be lifted, then we will be able to implement our programs for growth and reform in the country. In my belief, Syria will be normal, and that is something that I will push for. But the final decision to the structure and constitution of the state should not be in the hands of one person, which means I can't tell you that Syria must be in this structure and so on. This is illogical, as there are 27 million people living in Syria, and it has those with competence and expertise, as well as people who care about their country and nation. So I'll be leaving all of this in the hands of specialized committees chosen by the people to determine the laws of the upcoming state.
Syria's new education minister is focusing on rebuilding schools and reforming the curriculum. Nazir Mohammed Al-Qadri says girls' rights to education will not be restricted and schools will continue to welcome all students.
Syria's new education system is beginning a new chapter. The country's new education minister, Nazir Mohammed Al-Qadri, has outlined plans to rebuild thousands of schools. He says the curriculum will be revised to remove political influences from the past while keeping the core academic and professional content intact.
Our mission is very difficult today because the regime destroyed the schools, so there is a need to restore and build more than 9,000 schools. Allowing students to return to their schools is not an easy task as well. Rearranging teachers, including all sects and religions, to their areas is not an easy task either.
Primary schools will remain mixed, and secondary schools will continue to be separated by gender, maintaining a long-standing tradition. Speaking from his office in Damascus, Al-Qadri stressed that all communities in Syria, including minorities, will have equal opportunities in education as the country works to rebuild and recover. Education remains a key focus for Syria's new leadership as they aim to provide stability and equal opportunities for students across the country.
In the U.S., Amazon workers go on strike at several facilities across the country to try to pressure the retailer into contract talks with the union. This comes as the company enters the very crucial final days of the holiday season.
Hundreds of Amazon workers walked off the job early at 7 U.S. facilities across the country. These workers from cities including New York, Atlanta, and San Francisco are trying to pressure the retailer into a sit-down with their union. The protesters claim unfair pay and treatment from the tech giant.
We're working and doing these jobs and, sacrificing our bodies, and we're not even getting a livable wage to live in the cities for the city that we provide our service for. And not only do I look at my coworkers and see how just dog-tired and wear and tear it takes on their bodies, but we're not even given proper benefits.
All of us are living paycheck to paycheck. All of us have gotten behind on bills. Most of us have second or third jobs, or sometimes this is our second and third job. They keep a lot of us part-time so that they don't have to give us any health benefits. So a lot of us also are paying for health benefits out of pocket as well, just to be able to go see a doctor when we get hurt.
These demonstrations come as Amazon rushes out packages in the final run-up to Christmas. However, the company says it does not expect an impact on its operations following the strike, and so its shares trading 1.5% higher in pre-market hours, a sign that investors share similar views. Earlier this year, Amazon announced a $2.1 billion investment to raise pay for fulfillment and transportation employees in the U.S., increasing base wages by roughly 7%. The tech giant is the world's second largest private employer after Walmart and has more than 800,000 people at its U.S. warehouses. Observers say Amazon is unlikely to come to the table to bargain, as that could open the door for more union actions.
The United Kingdom imposes sanctions on 5 senior Georgian officials in response to the government's handling of recent protests. The demonstrations erupted after the suspension of EU accession talks. The UK imposed sanctions on senior members of Georgia's Interior Ministry for overseeing harsh actions against protesters. The protests erupted after Prime Minister Kobahidze suspended EU membership talks, citing, quote, blackmail and manipulation by EU politicians. The UK ambassador, Gareth Ward, has been summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Georgia in connection with the sanctions. Turkish Airlines has claimed the Guinness World Record for the airline flying to the most countries, further solidifying its position as a global leader in the aviation industry. Meantime, it holds the title of flying to the most countries in the world since 2012.
The prestigious record was officially certified at Santiago's Arturo Merino Benitez International Airport following the Turkish flag carrier's inaugural flight to Chile. With the addition of this new route, Turkish Airlines now operates in 131 countries, including 120 active routes in the past year, as confirmed by Guinness World Records. Guinness World Records official Talal Omar praised the airline for its vision, calling the milestone a testament to Turkish Airlines' global impact on aviation. Founded in 1933 with a modest fleet, Turkish Airlines now operates 491 aircraft, serving 352 destinations. As a member of Star Alliance, the airline continues to expand its network, reaffirming its commitment to uniting the world through Turkey.
And now we're taking you on a journey through the world's longest underground art gallery, Stockholm's mesmerizing metro system. Beneath the bustling streets of Sweden's capital lies an extraordinary fusion of art and architecture, with over 90 stations transformed into captivating visual masterpieces.
Stockholm's metro system isn't just a way to get from point A to point B. It's also a mesmerizing journey through the largest underground art gallery on the planet. With over 90 stations adorned with breathtaking works of art, Stockholm's subway is a must-see destination for art lovers and curious travelers. Spanning 7 decades of creativity, the artwork in the metro system dates back to the 1950s and continues to inspire new generations of artists.
Stockholm is unique in the way that we have such a long tradition, that we have been working with this ever since the 1950s. So we are soon celebrating 70 years. But also that even if the system is small, with only 100 stations, 94 of them have art. So it's also the amount of art.
At the King's Garden, commuters are greeted by a regal entrance hall featuring classical statues and water features. These stunning replicas echo the grandeur of a royal palace that once stood nearby. Meanwhile, T-Centralen, the network's central hub, invites travelers into a serene world of whitewashed tunnels, where blue wines and floral patterns stretch gracefully across the walls and ceiling. Created by artist Per-Olof Ultwed, the murals also pay tribute to the unsung heroes of the metro. Silhouettes of the tunnel workers can be spotted in the artwork. Some stations like Stadion blur the lines between art and architecture. Dubbed one of the cave stations, Stadion's vivid sky blue walls and vibrant rainbow arc have become Instagram-worthy icons for visitors.
If you travel around in the metro, you will find art from the 50s, 60s, 70s, well, until contemporary art, because this work is still going on. What is unique, that is the kind of architecture you'll find at the stations from the 1970s and onwards. We call them the cave stations or the grotto stations.
From the fiery reds of one station to the serene blues of another, Stockholm's underground transforms a daily commute into a stunning visual journey.
And that's all from our team at the moment. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you later tonight. Take care.